some people, when they hear about a diagnosis, want to hide their head in the sand about it because this is news that they don't want to hear.
Welcome to EyeCan, a podcast about ophthalmology through a uniquely Canadian lens with Dr. Sarah Ziai and myself, Dr. Guillermo Rocha.
This season, we have two new co-hosts joining us, Dr. Mona Dagger and Dr. Hadi Saheb. They'll be hosting upcoming episodes throughout the season. Season 3 of the EyeCan podcast is brought to you by Bayer Ophthalmology. Thank you for your support.
Welcome to the EyeCan podcast. I'm Mona Dagger.
And I'm Dr. Hadi Saheb.
On today's episode of EyeCan, we are sharing a patient journey with our listeners and are pleased to introduce you to Doug Purdy.
Doug Purdy graduated from the University of British Columbia with a master's degree in social work, specializing in community development and planning. He has been president of LPA Development and Marketing Consultants in Vancouver, British Columbia since 1998. The company specializes in providing caring, compassionate, and responsible tenant relocation services to the real estate development community. Thanks to the work of the organization, many seniors and people with disabilities and limited income have found rent-geared-to-income housing. Doug's firm also provides rezoning advice and consulting services to real estate developers.
Doug lives with glaucoma, an age-related macular degeneration, and has been a patient of ophthalmology for many years. We are pleased to share his story with our listeners. Welcome to the EyeCan podcast, Mr. Purdy.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I welcome being here and to share my story, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Doug, for being here and for sharing your journey in ophthalmology with us. Let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us what was your first contact with eye care professionals?
Well, my first contact with eye care professionals was when I was 8 years of age. That's when I was at a ball game with my father and passed out at the game, and they had no idea what was going on, and the doctor referred my parents and me to an ophthalmologist. And at that time, he determined that I had an eye condition that required glasses, that I had particular problems in one eye, and prescribed glasses that helped correct the problem at the time. Fast forward, when I was in my late 50s, and had long ago moved to British Columbia from Nova Scotia, I again continued with an ophthalmologist in Vancouver, and early on he identified the fact that I had macular degeneration. And it was the dry variety, and along with that asked me a series of questions about whether I was a smoker, or he could tell I wasn't obese. He looked at other factors and concluded that, we both concluded that I jokingly said I didn't choose my parents very well because it was likely genetic. And I was joking because I loved my parents and they were fantastic. But I also told him that I had smoked for the first 17 years of my life, and whether that was a factor or not, I don't know. I didn't smoke, but both of my parents smoked in the house, and I was subjected to secondhand smoke, as were both my sisters. That aside, I accepted the diagnosis as the reality. He provided information to me in the booklet on macular degeneration, both dry and wet, gave me an Ansler grid to keep at my bedside, which I do and did at the time. And it was the little tool that allowed me to identify when my sight began to degenerate and shift from dry to wet macular degeneration. The second tell, if you will, or major indicator was I was driving to a meeting and was coming off a incline down onto a highway, and the white line was very curved. And right away, having read the material and having regularly consulted with the Ansel grid, I immediately knew what was going on, continued off to my meeting, and when I came back, immediately called the ophthalmologist and said, "Hey, I think I have a problem." And the rest is history.
Doug, I'm hoping to unpack one of your comments. You made a comment about, getting pamphlets from your doctor, and in clinics we have access to pamphlets. Of course, online now there's so much information. I'm wondering, from a patient perspective, what do you find most useful? Is it pamphlets? Is it what the doctor tells you when you're in clinic? Is it what you hear from your friends and family? Is it what you find online? Can you help us as ophthalmologists better understand what you feel is most useful in terms of receiving information about a condition you have or a condition you're worried about?
Well, at that time, of course, computers and computer systems and people having access to phones, computers, you name it, wasn't as de rigueur as it is today. Everyone, most people have a phone, have electronic devices, they have access to the web, they have access to Siri, Siri. I shouldn't say that. She'll just answer my question. have, to a host of information that wasn't available at that time. So for me, having that booklet in hand and having the information available was invaluable to me, because I took it very seriously, because my job, my role, my company is all about paper and being online, spreadsheets, emails, letters, you name it. So I was very reliant and am very reliant on that, all those pieces of those tools to be able to carry out my business. But at that time, the paper was that booklet was absolutely invaluable to me. Today, people have more resources at their disposal, as I said earlier, and it's really important that they have the wherewithal, but also have the will and desire to explore. Some people, when they hear about a diagnosis, want to hide their head in the sand about it, because this is news that they don't want to hear. We know that's a fact for cancer patients. When they go and the doctor tells them they have cancer, for many people, all they hear after the pronouncement is blah, 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 because they're in such shock about it. I think to a lesser extent, the same is true about sight, especially serious issues like macular degeneration, whether it's dry or wet, because of the potential impact on one's life.
Yeah, that's very revealing. Doug, you're young. This must have happened years ago. So,
well, I'm so young. Yes, I'll be 82 in May. So I've been living with this for a long period of time, and I'm also at a point where, as you know, there's no cure for dry macular degeneration. Wet macular degeneration, if it's detected at an early enough stage, there are the injections that are available. I was very fortunate. The timing of my diagnosis happened to correspond with the government of British Columbia's approval of coverage for Avastin, the first drug that was available for eye injections to treat wet macular degeneration. We're now going on the fourth or fifth generation. There was Lucentis, there's Eylea, there's a new drug out, and there's a variety of other research projects going on for other kinds of treatments. I am now back to Lucentis after having been on Eylea for a while because I had a serious infection in my left eye earlier this year, and that's my good eye. And if that had gone south, I would not be sitting here looking at you because I would be virtually blind because my right eye is very compromised. So I've been blessed with, first of all, the team of my ophthalmologist, Dr. Briar Sexton, by the retina specialist team of David and 2 Andrews. And they have been essentially with the help of financing through the health authorities of the drugs, of keeping my sight and of my own due diligence in being very rigorous about all of the medications, especially the glaucoma medicine that I take twice a day in drops, and I take Vitalux, Arids. I have a whole vitamin regimen that I do to ensure that I can retain my sight to the greatest extent possible. Having said that, this last few months, I've turned the corner a bit to, in my right eye, I was at 80/20, I'm now at 220. So there's a regression there. And I can see also with my left eye that I'm very gradually losing clarity of sight. And so I'm hoping, against hope, that because I am very vigorous about my health, I eat well, I exercise, I try to do all the right things. And that's been a lifestyle of mine for my 81 plus years. I hope to retain my sight, but we don't have control over all of those circumstances.
EyeCan wants to know what you think. Please send your comments on today's episode or any suggestions you may have for topics or features to communications@cos-sco.ca, and we'll try to incorporate them into future episodes.
My name is Vivian Hill. I'm the current chair of the Council on Advocacy of the Canadian Ophthalmological Society, and I listen to the EyeCan podcast.
Doug, I really wish listeners could see you, because seeing you makes it so hard to believe you're 81. And kudos to you for being so healthy. You just look so well and healthy and athletic. So really good for you. And I'm sure that's had a positive impact on your eyesight. You mentioned injections, and I'm wondering if you can give us like a snapshot of your first injection experience and how that felt from a patient perspective. And then maybe now, years later, that you've had so many injections, what it feels like now. Can you give us a snapshot of those two experiences, your first and most recent injections?
I played hockey for almost 60 years. I played varsity hockey for the University of British Columbia. Of course, there was lots of contact, lots of injuries, pucks hitting faces, eyes, you name it. So I have a very high pain tolerance. So pain is not a big deal for me because of, I also played varsity football in my undergraduate years at Mount Allison University. So sports has always been a big part of my life. And I continue that with my alumni hockey group here throughout. So when I also meditate, I do yoga and so on. So when it came down to the first encounter with the doctor and what was required to preserve my sight. I was very philosophical about it, and B, was prepared to endure whatever it took to make sure that the doctors, could do the injection without me trying to jump out of the chair or flinch or do whatever else reaction might have been generated by that. And at that time, they had the eye clip to keep the eye open to ensure that I did not close my eyes. It was a bit freaky at first to see the needle coming in towards my eye as I was looking up. I forget when, up to the left or to the right, to down below, either side. And but it happened, and there was a bit of a prick to the eye, even though they'd put the drops in for the freezing. But after all was said and done, it's no big deal. At the same time, I thought, this is me. Other people may react differently. And it so happens that I have several friends who are older, a couple who are my wife's family friends, who also have macular degeneration, and the two of them stopped the injections because they've just found it too intolerable. So it depends on the individual and the individual's experience, preparedness, psychological state, their willingness to absorb, if you will, the hit, so to speak, in order to preserve their sight. But I do know that it is initially an unsettling experience. Now it's old hat. The other thing that, because I've been getting it for years, and two of the three doctors don't even use the little eye-opening clamp anymore. They are just so skilled and sophisticated in their approach that it's kind of like giving blood, getting a little needle in your arm. And it's, the freezing goes in. They say, look to the left or to look to the right. Bingo, it's done. And
it takes a great patient, Doug, to be able to do that. So kudos to you, honestly. It's a reflection of how good you are of a patient and how much you collaborate with them. Well, so you are a versed patient in ophthalmology. You have had AMD, you have glaucoma, and you've had cataract surgery.
I've had cataract surgery in my mid-50s, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Quite young.
So yeah, my eyes are my Achilles eyes.
I'd like to hear more about your perspective and experience with the different treating ophthalmologists that you've had in the past, how you felt as a patient being treated, and what are your thoughts in general?
Well, my thoughts throughout my lifetime have been extremely positive because they were very knowledgeable about my eye conditions. They were very attentive to what my particular circumstances were and are at any of my visits. Dr. Sexton, who has been my ophthalmologist for the past 15 years now, and she was very young at the time, and I still see her as a baby. And she is on top of her game. She's on top of what's happening with research. Apparently, she has her own eye condition that she's had to contend with that probably informed her about her choice of profession. As a matter of fact, I just had a visual field test this week. I have them annually, thanks to Dr. Sexton. She then follows up with a meeting with me. She looks into my eyes deeply. It's very romantic. And to tell me what's going on. And has the advantage, of course, is having had that long relationship. she has my history as well, which is very important to her and to me to maintain a perspective on what's happening with me.
Any advice you have for physicians and how they can treat patients, how they can improve relationship with their patients?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm not a shy guy. So if I have questions, I ask them. And I try to be informed about and have an informed question to ask when anything is going on. So one of the best pieces of advice that I could give to any patient is to be informed, keep informed, and don't feel reticent about asking your doctor questions, because that is going to help them understand where you are at a particular given moment with respect to your eye condition and your understanding of it. If you're not asking clear questions, then it gives them an opportunity to ask some additional questions to give them more information about helping understand where you are in your journey at a particular moment in time. And that's absolutely critical for both patients and doctors, because if they're playing a guessing game or the odd, and I haven't encountered it, but I understand certain doctors that may have I know everything and you know nothing approach. I would not stay with such a doctor. I would want to have a collaborative relationship, because I'm living with my disorder, I'm living with my eye condition, I'm living with my health conditions. So if there's other things going on as well that may be a contributing factor, it's important for the doctor to understand that as well, because it's not, your head isn't isolated from the rest of your body, from your heart, from your organs, from whatever. So to know the whole patient, not necessarily in detail, but to know enough about what's going on with the whole patient, I think is important.
I agree. Communication and empathy are very essential to a good relationship with our patients.
Yes.
Doug, can you tell us about the obstacles that you face due to the eye conditions that you have, to the visual impairment that you're living with?
The obstacles are picking up momentum, unfortunately. As I said earlier, my sight is degenerating. I, unfortunately, didn't take typing, and we know that everything today on computers has to do with typing, although I am increasingly using the tools of voice to be able to dictate stuff. And early in my career, when I was a civil servant, I had a secretary and I could dictate. So thank heavens for the dictation option these days. But nevertheless, there's still a lot of typing that I have to do, and finding the right keys. My error, if I was paid by the error, I'd be much richer because of the amount of errors that I make in my typing. A lot of it related to my big thumbs, but a lot of it relating to just not having sufficient sight to be able to do things efficiently. It's also impacted my driving. I cannot drive at night, particularly in roads where there's little lighting. So my wife is a designated driver now, and as necessary, we also use Uber, taxis. We live close to the Canada line, so that's convenient for us. But it does impact my ability to go to meetings if I don't have other options, and I have only the car available. I have to seek other opportunities. So that's, while it's been frustrating as far as ego is concerned, it is also not a big adjustment, because my wife is very helpful, and we work together So in our business, so we do a lot of meetings together. We do a lot of Zoom meetings, Microsoft meetings, you name it. So that's not a big deal. I notice that I'm a little more cautious. Like today, I went out to go to do the grocery shopping. We live close. We have shopping close by. I was going to take my car, and I thought, no, parking because we have a lot of snow in Vancouver, even though it is the Sun Belt. It's very snowy here today and yesterday, and it could be low zero, so it's very icy. I was crossing the street. I'm very fortunate because of all of the training that I've done, both in the gym and hockey and so on, that I'm able to keep my balance. And the same with hiking. I've tripped over roots and stones and so on numerous occasions and have fallen very rarely because of my core strength and my balance. But a lot of elderly people don't have that strength. They don't have that balance. They don't have that training. They don't have that memory that goes, okay, you know what you have to do to stay upright without falling. So a lot of people are a lot more vulnerable than I am, and I understand that completely. So I know that there's increasing amount going on with me, and as the sight deteriorates, I'm going to have to continue to make adjustments to my lifestyle, to my work. We keep talking about retirement, but the business keeps on happening. So I've got my right-hand person close by to keep it going, and my brain isn't dead, so all is good.
Sounds like a great problem to have, Doug. You're, as ophthalmologists, I don't think we've ever heard that, vision loss or vision impairment is easy. Most people really struggle with that. That being said, on all of our practices, we see some patients that really thrive despite, quite an impact on their vision, and I'm listening to you and feel like you're one of those patients who are thriving despite vision impairment. And you compare that to some of our patients who really struggle with a similar amount of vision impairment. And I'm wondering if you have advice for us as we talk to our patients that are struggling, or for other patients struggling with vision impairment, on how they can make the most of their situation and try to thrive as much as you are.
Well, thanks for that question, because it's interesting. I'm a donor and a fan of Fighting Blindness Canada. I donate regularly on a monthly basis. I've also been on panels through the exposure of them. And I've been interested in, particularly with, for example, glaucoma and the use of drops for glaucoma, if you will, the number of patients who are not compliant with taking the drops on a regular basis, between 40 and 50%, and which is a remarkable number of patients who are not compliant. And so we were having conversations about that. What is that about? Well, it's a variety of things. It is a self-discipline. To really have a routine in your daily life that you really stick to, and ensure that you are taking your meds, taking your drops, are keeping your appointments, and are really being diligent about your own well-being. All of those things are more easily said than done. A lot of people are in circumstances where they do not have the support that I have with my wife, that they don't have the life circumstances, and I'm very fortunate with my business, and I don't have any financial worries and so on. A lot of people are fighting a lot of battles in their life that, unfortunately, impair them in a variety of ways. One of the former friend, and not a former friend, a friend of mine, who's a former minister of mine, in one of his sermons gave me a little advice. He gave the whole congregation advice, but I took it to heart. And the saying was, be gentle, for everyone is fighting a great battle in life. And I took that to heart, and I take it to heart because if we look at people who are on the street and they're walking by, some with heads cast down, some with angry looks in their face, some with a smile on their face, some going about their business, but everyone has their own story. And it's something, you mentioned the word empathy earlier, it's being empathetic to patients to understand what is going on. In other words, it's not just the surface answer that you get. You're trying to dig deeper and deeper into the issue, into the concern, into the health issue, to find out what is behind the initial response or the initial concern or the initial diagnosis, to find out if there is, in fact, anything else behind that may be impacting a patient's ability, willingness, desire, what have you, to be as compliant and to be as to treat themselves as well as they might in order to help prolong the effectiveness of the treatment.
Doug, you're in a pretty unique situation of having two chronic conditions, macular degeneration and glaucoma. And I'm wondering if it's clear to you how much each condition is affecting your quality of vision, and if there's one of the two conditions that worries you more.
I know I have the best of both worlds and the worst of both worlds in the sense that I have great treatment. And I know that I know what glaucoma does to one's vision. That's your peripheral vision. I know what macular degeneration does. That's your core vision. So if everything was to go sideways, I would not be in a good state from a sight perspective. But so far, having been treated for both for about 10 to 12 years for the glaucoma, a little longer for the macular degeneration, I think that I'm at greater risk because of the gradual deterioration of the dry macular degeneration, unless I lose tolerance for the eye injections for the wet macular degeneration. So that's my own personal assessment of my situation.
Thanks for sharing that. I've got a challenge for you, Doug, because you've got such a wealth of experience, and to summarize this in a one-liners, I'm sure going to be really tough. But I'm wondering, as we wrap up, if we can ask you for a one-liner of advice for patients struggling with vision loss, and a one-liner of advice for ophthalmologist colleagues listening to us right now.
For the patients is be your own best advocate to take care of yourself. I would also add one other word, because a lot of people don't think they deserve it, and that is love yourself enough to take care of yourself. And for the doctors, I would go back to be gentle and listen and ask, for everyone is fighting a great battle in life.
That's excellent advice. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Well, thanks for your questions. It's a pleasure meeting you both.
Well, Doug, thanks so much for sharing all of that. There's so much for us to learn from your journey, and good luck with the rest of your journey with your eyes.
Thank you, and good luck to you in your own journeys. You're very important people to a lot of fortunate patients out there.
Doug, as we finish each podcast, we usually like to ask our guests about some of their non-professional life activities. Would you like to share that with us?
Sure. We do a lot of traveling, and everywhere we go, we do a lot of hiking. We've hiked throughout Europe, Australia, New Zealand, many places in the United States and Canada. So we're very active. So we're very fortunate to love the outdoors and to have the wherewithal to be able to travel and hike. We are also very close to family. We're going to not only my family, because I originally, as I said, originated from Nova Scotia. Kelly grew up in Hawaii. We met in Vancouver. We're heading off to Hawaii for a month next week to again visit family. And then in the spring, we'll be going to Nova Scotia.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And thank you for bringing hope to patients who, like yourself, have to live with visual deficiencies and difficulties.
Well, thanks for your participation in the program to bring messages to patients, because it's really important.
EyeCan wants to know what you think. Please send your comments on today's episode or any suggestions you may have for topics or features to communications@cos-sco.ca, and we'll try to incorporate them into future episodes.
Here's what's coming up on our next episodes: sustainability in practice, women in ophthalmology, young ophthalmologists entering practice, and more.
Season 3 of the EyeCan podcast is brought to you by Bayer Ophthalmology. Thank you for your support.
Thank you to the Canadian Ophthalmological Society.
The EyeCan podcast is written and directed by Kim Teitler and produced by John Allaire from Allaire Strategic Works.